you will hear the voice. So good morning.
Good morning, Reverend Maya. Thank you for inviting me again. It's always delightful to be with this very receptive and spiritual group. So I enjoy that very much and appreciate the opportunity to be with you and share with you some of my thoughts and experiences and feelings and all that sort of thing. So I always like to begin, or usually like to begin with a time of meditation. And so I want to invite you to join me in that. Find yourself a comfortable position and begin to turn your attention inward to feel your breathing, to feel the energy that flows through your whole body. Becoming aware of your thoughts and feelings now, you simply observe them without judgment, without trying to push them away, without trying to hold on to them. Simply let them flow before you and settle into a place of stillness and peace. This place of stillness and peace is not an outer space, but an inner space. And we find it through adopting an attitude of openness, attitude of receptivity. In this space of peace and stillness, I invite you to join with me, and yet in your own way, contemplate the idea of God. In unity, we say God is principle and God is good. I would invite you to focus in on this idea that God is the principle of good. Principle of good. What does this mean to you right now? What does the word principle mean in connection with our ideas of God? What does the word good mean for you? We are open to having our consciousness filled with the idea, the divine idea of good, the divine nature of good, principle, unchanging, everywhere present principle of good, here, everywhere, in the midst of us, all around us, and beyond even that which we can conceive. Let this idea of the principle of good fill your awareness and unfold your consciousness. It's an omnipresent, unchanging principle. This good, whatever that means to you, is already within you. It's already what you are. So we let that awareness fill us. We think good, we feel good. We intuitively know the principle of good. Even if we cannot put it into words, we can know it and be filled with it, empowering us with understanding and faith, filling us with love and bliss. principle of good is ever active in my consciousness and in my experience. I invite you to simply know that the principle of good is ever active in my consciousness and experience. We are open and receptive and affirming this truth, the principle of good. It is this principle, it is this living spirit reality, whatever it is that we think of it or call it, is this principle of good that guides us with wisdom, heals us, gives us life, that connects us through love, that energizes and strengthens us, provides us with an abundance of good things, things that are also manifestations of the principle of good. So I now invite you, as we enter into just a time of silence, I invite you to let the principle of good have its way in your consciousness and bring into that consciousness anyone you may be thinking of, pray for, pray with, for they too are filled with and immersed in this principle of good. So in the silence and the stillness, we simply experience that reality for ourselves and others. Be still and know the I am God. It's through this consciousness of the divine presence, the divine reality, the divine one, the principle of good, through this consciousness that we make the space we are in and the place we are in a sacred space and place. It's not where we are, but the consciousness we hold in the place that we are that makes our place and space sacred. So as we close this time of meditative prayer, we know that the place we are in right now, wherever that may be, in physical terms, this is a sacred, holy space and place. That space and place is all around us and within us. Close in a consciousness of gratitude and love and joy, accepting our good and awaiting unfoldment of ever greater good this day and the coming days. And so it is. Amen. Well, as you may have heard or read, a couple weeks, I'm going to start doing a midweek class with you on mysticism, where we'll explore kind of a history of people and ideas that are part of the great mystical thread of spirituality that flows all around the earth and through time. So literally see that the different cultures and times in which we find this recurring idea, what Aldous Huxley called the perennial philosophy. The idea for the title of my talk today actually comes from time when I was teaching. I was teaching, I think the course was a history of Christianity, and I was focusing in on mysticism, I think in the Middle Ages. And after the class, one of the students asked me, um, he said, "Are you a mystic?" Or she, I don't remember who was it asked actually, "Are you a mystic?" And I was a little bit taken aback by that, actually, to tell you the truth at the time. I wasn't quite sure how to answer it. And so I've reflected on that a lot. What does it mean to be a mystic? Can I affirm that of myself? It's a little bit, I think, like when someone asks you if you're a Christian. Um, well, generally, if somebody asks me that question, I will simply say yes without explanation. If they want more explanation, we can go into it. But the way asking if you're a mystic is a kind of a challenging question. In order to get at what it is, we have to, in order to understand, how to answer that question, to understand how a way of thinking of ourselves, we have to have a certain amount of clarity about what mysticism actually is. So for the next couple of weeks here on Sunday, I'm going to focus in on that a bit, what it means. Are you a mystic? So you can ask yourself this question. Maybe you already know the answer. Maybe you're very confident in the answer, but it's still worth looking at from different angles. And so that's what I want to do this morning. Mysticism, as defined by religious scholars or scholars of religion, mysticism is generally understood in terms of a particular type of spiritual experience. Common use of the term mysticism, common use, everyday language, is indicated in dictionary definitions. So it's different than an academic or a scholarly definition. So if you look up mysticism in your dictionary, as I have, you're likely to find something along the lines that mysticism is any belief in realities beyond the physical. But also you might find definitions, as I found, like this: confused or groundless speculation, or superstitious self-delusion. So people have a wide variety of ideas about what mysticism is. It's one of the most misunderstood phenomena and probably misused words in the English language. I find the academic concept of mysticism generally is too narrow, and that conventional definitions, such as you might find in conversation or in a dictionary, conventional definitions are too broad. The academic concept is too narrow because it tends to focus too much on the experience, what's called the mystical experience, and not enough on, well, what are the beliefs and practices that are shared by mystics? So it's too narrow in the sense that it focuses on one type of experience without seeing the larger picture. And conventional definitions are simply too broad because they include beliefs and experiences that actually have nothing to do with mysticism in this particular tradition around the world. Also, visions of angels or spirits actually have nothing to do with mysticism either. Hearing voices has nothing to do with mysticism. Channeling spiritual entities has nothing to do with mysticism. Now, a mystic might have such experiences along the way, but we find historically most do not. So mysticism isn't really a matter of having visions or channeling entities or even having, special psychic powers. It's something, though, that can be clearly understood in the broad context of the spiritual traditions around the world, and this particular thread that we call mysticism that runs through it. Religious teachings that focus on rituals, beliefs about salvation from hell, confession of a creed, belief in an anthropomorphic, a human-like God, those teachings are not mystical. So conventional or traditional religions tend not to teach mysticism. In fact, that type of religion that has those kinds of focus does not satisfy the mystically oriented. If anything, mystics tend to reject or at least reinterpret traditional religious ideas. So we can't really, simply by knowing about religions, have any sort of deep understanding of what mysticism is. It shifts the focus away from concepts of God as human-like, or as some sort of supreme person distinct and separate from humanity. Mysticism shifts the focus toward a limitless, omnipresent divine nature. In mystic teachings, God is one with all in all, and more than all. When we think of all as the universe itself. Answer the question, who is a mystic? To answer the question, am I a mystic? We need to consider the lives and ideas of those who are acknowledged to be mystics. We can understand it by examining their desires, their beliefs, their actions, as well as the experience that's called the mystical experience, the experience of divine union, the experience of merging with ultimate reality, the mystical experience. It's the desires, the beliefs, and actions or practices of mystics that lead to that experience. And so I would say that a person who shares the desires, the beliefs, and the actions of the mystic path is a mystic, both on the way to the experience and after the experience. In some cases, mystics only have one or two such experiences. It is enough to profoundly shift their consciousness and way of being in the world. But that shift has been happening all along as a result, again, of their desires, beliefs, and actions. So again, I ask the question, are you a mystic? You are if you share on the mystic path. You share in those desires and beliefs and actions, even if you have not yet had an experience that you would call divine union or the mystical experience. So we need to be clear about sort of the character of these people that are called mystics, their desires, their beliefs, their actions, as well as the ultimate experience. As with all human endeavors, mysticism begins with desire. Perhaps aspiration would be a more appropriate word. Mystics are seekers. They want more than anything to experience the ultimate reality. That's a goal that's different from most human goals when you think about it. Human beings seek success, they seek happiness in the context of family, they may seek power, wealth, glory. The mystic just seeks truth, seeks to understand, to know what is at the root of all these things that we experience. The mystic's attention is turned in a different direction than the ordinary. So some mystics begin their journey actually holding to traditional ideas, religious ideas, and practices. That may be where they start, where they begin. Other mystics may begin as philosophers and metaphysicians who aspire to intellectually understand ultimate reality. They may begin even as scientists. Sometimes philosophers become mystics, and sometimes mystics become philosophers. After all, what better understanding can there be of ultimate reality than a direct, subjective, immediate experience of that reality? That is what someone who is consciously a mystic seeks, and that is what those who are seeking the truth sometimes find. By the way, I want to add to this, it seems germane, that metaphysics is a term that is as misused and misunderstood in our general culture as the word mysticism. It seems that people who are interested in the supernatural and things like channeling or even reincarnation, whatever, that's where their focus is sort of on beyond the normal experiences. People who are interested in those kinds of things sometimes say they're interested in metaphysics. I suppose using the word metaphysics sounds more intellectual and acceptable than saying I'm interested in the supernatural. But metaphysics really is, the term comes from, and in its authentic representation, metaphysics is a branch of philosophy that inquires into the first principles or the most general principles of knowledge and the universe. So it's a rational inquiry. It's not a focus on finding ghosts or channeling spirits or speculating about past incarnations. Metaphysics is concerned with logically determining the nature of being and becoming, of potentiality and actuality, of essence and substance, and so on. It's a very specific discipline. And so unity, when we talk about our metaphysics, what we're talking about is a metaphysical system, an understanding of the nature of being and becoming, of potentiality and actuality, and so on. And clear up some of the muddled thinking about mysticism and metaphysics, it's useful to illustrate what they are with an example. A person who is both a mystic and metaphysician. So that's what I want to do today, is I want to tell you the story and the ideas and some of the ideas of a person who's acknowledged by historians and religion scholars as one of the great mystics and also one of the most influential metaphysicians of ancient times. This mystic metaphysician was named Plotinus. Perhaps you've heard of Plotinus. Plotinus was not the founder of a religion. Nevertheless, he influenced religions. He influenced theology, as well as later mystics and later philosophers. Plotinus was not part of any traditional religion. So in him, we can see an example of mysticism stripped of or devoid of the institutionalized religious beliefs and practices, the baggage in a lot of different cases of mystics. We can see a little bit more clearly and purely what mysticism is and how it's connected to metaphysics. Plotinus's life and writings were formative for Christian and Islamic mysticism and some Jewish mysticism. His concepts also had much in common with some ideas that you would find in Hinduism and their mysticism and metaphysics. In fact, Plotinus's ideas are so like some of those found in Hinduism that religious scholars and philosophers still debate whether or not Plotinus's ideas were derived from India and Hinduism, or whether some Hindu ideas were derived from Plotinus. No one can really sort that out. So let's talk a little bit about who he was, what he did, what he believed. Plotinus was born in 204 Common Era, 204 AD, right? And he passed on in 270. He was born in Lycopolis, Egypt, which is near the Delta, which is near Cairo, near Alexandria, Egypt. Now, based on his birthplace, he may have been African, Greek, Roman, or even of Jewish descent. For that matter, he could have been a mixture of those lineages. We don't really know. Okay, I suspect that's what he was, kind of mixed ethnicity, because Egypt was a place that was inhabited by people from all around the Mediterranean world, from the Middle East, from Italy, from Greece, but also, of course, from Africa. So in any case, his appeal was cosmopolitan, crossing cultural lines and nationalities. So I like to think of him as a kind of cosmopolitan person who was descended maybe from a number of branches of the human family in different nations. In any case, when he was about 28 years old, Plotinus moved to Alexandria, Egypt, which was nearby. And he moved there specifically to study philosophy. So this is the first indication of a quality that's actually shared by all of the great mystics, an aspiration to find the truth rather than a desire for wealth or power or glory or family. Again, an unusual kind of a quest. And so if you have been on a quest to know the truth, to know God, as we might say, then you may be a mystic. Now, Alexandria was the cultural center of the Mediterranean world at that time. It had the world's largest library, the largest urban Jewish community in the world. It had the most scholars, obviously, along with the most books. It was the best place to get an education in Greek philosophy, or really any other study, including if you wanted to study some sort of progressive forms of Judaism or Christianity. Later Christian leaders actually have asserted that Plotinus had been a Christian, but there's actually no evidence for that in his writings. He doesn't write at all about Christianity or anything that you would say is specifically a Christian idea. And of course, during his time, there were other people who counterclaim or who made the counterclaim that he wasn't a Christian. I mean, shortly after his time. So historians still debate that issue. We see when we get a little bit into his beliefs, I'll point out sort of how his ideas could fit with some of the later Christian theology that developed. And, you know, as it happened, people in many faiths, Islam, Judaism, Christianity, and others, adopted his ideas. So we may as well just leave the question open. Was he a Christian? Maybe he was a little bit of everything. In any case, in his mid-30s, Plotinus joined a military campaign that was headed for India. The reason he went was not in search of glory, but he hoped to reach Persia and India to learn from their philosophers. So he was, again, following this aspiration to know the truth. And in this case, trying to see what people in Persia and India knew. So that's what he wanted to do. That's why he joined the military campaign. It reflects the aspiration of the mystic. However, the campaign failed to reach India. And so he never actually made it there. So after that, he moved to Rome. And in Rome, he spent the rest of his life as a teacher and a writer. During that time, he wrote down his philosophy, which consists of something like 900 to 1,000 pages. So we have a lot of what he believed, 900 to 1,000 pages, depending on the size of the page in the print, right? His work, Plotinus's work, is called the Enneads, Enneads, Enneads. Some of you may be students of the Enneagram. Ennea is the Greek word for 9. Okay, so the Enneads were 9 things. What 9 things? Well, his work was actually organized into 6 volumes, and each volume contained 9 treatises. So because it has the 9 treatises, it's called the Enneads. And those writings were studied by theologians, philosophers, mystics from his time to ours. There are still some who have a special scholarly interest in Plotinus and his ideas and his influence on Western philosophy and religion. So Plotinus became really the greatest scholar and teacher of philosophy in his region and in his era. His interpretations of Plato and Aristotle really shaped the way most philosophers have understood Plato and Aristotle well into the 19th century. They still remain a valuable source for historians and philosophers in our time to understand Plato and Aristotle and how people looked at them and so on. So Plotinus's philosophy covered metaphysics, ethics, psychology, and aesthetics. It covered them in a systematic way where everything was integrated. So each part of his philosophy was a part of a seamless system. But of course, the reason I'm talking about Plotinus is there was more to him than his intellectual accomplishment. His philosophy also defined the mystical path for the Western world, a path to experience union with ultimate reality. Plotinus himself had what are called mystical experiences and described them, what they were like. And his descriptions fit with the descriptions that you find, whether you look in Hinduism, if you look in Taoism, Buddhism, even as well as in Christianity and Judaism. All the mystics talk about the same kind of experience in similar language. And so he is understood because of that experience to be a genuine, authentic, important mystic. He was also a mentor to other mystically, philosophically oriented students who were also seeking this knowledge and this experience. He guided them in effective ways of contemplation and effective ways of living consistent with the mystical path. In fact, Plotinus was also highly regarded for his practical wisdom. He did not himself have a family, but many prominent families appointed him as guardian of their children. They would do that. The prominent families would do that because they considered they would they considered him to be very wise and offering effective guidance for their children. Plotinus was universally regarded as a kind and trustworthy person, so a person of good character and integrity. What is clear from a study of his life and writings is that from a young age, Plotinus aspired to know the truth and to perceive the ultimate reality. This, again, is the first sign of one who becomes a mystic. The mystic may pursue truth in a university, a monastery, a church, or as a student of a single respected teacher. A mystic may even go their own way, guided only by books, or even searching unguided within themselves to find the truth. Mystics have as often been women as men. They've been African, Asian, European, and Native American. There's no discrimination on the path of illumination. Those, as Jesus said, those who seek will find. He didn't say those who are men who seek will find. He didn't say those who are white or who are black will seek and find. He just said those who seek will find. That is the path, the start of the path of the mystic. So beyond this aspiration, what do mystics generally believe? This, perhaps more than any other factor, defines what a true mystic is. Plotinus's philosophy is consistent in many points with beliefs that other mystics across the ages and across the continents have held. Their beliefs about the nature of the universe, the nature of humanity, the nature of the divine. There have been, I would say, some of that consistency is a result of Plotinus's specific influence, but on the other hand, there have clearly been mystics unfamiliar with his works but still we find this common ground of belief. So what is it that he came to believe in his understanding of Platonic metaphysics? Well, in simplest terms, Plotinus developed an emanation theory of reality. Right? A natural example of emanation is the sun. It emanates warmth and light throughout the solar system. Its gravity holds the solar system together. Its warmth, light, and gravity are not separate from it, but manifestations, emanations from the sun. And so in Plotinus's theory, it's an emanation theory. It all begins not with the sun, but with the one. That's what he called it, the one. The beginning, at the top of the hierarchy, at the source of the emanations, is the one. And Plotinus said the one cannot really be described because it transcends all languages, all concepts. Return to the one. The experience of this indescribable, indivisible unity, this source of all, return to the one is the mystic goal. So we have emanated from the one, and in his theory, what we want to do is move back into, return to the one. Because everything emanates from the one is in all things, and all things are manifestations of the one. So mystics in various traditions have called what Plotinus called the one, they have called God or Allah or Tao or Brahman, but all agree it is the source of all things, and all things are its emanations or manifestations. According to Plotinus, the one is also the good, which is also ultimately indescribable. So if you believe that all comes from the divine one and divine good, then you may be a mystic. In Plotinus's philosophy, the first emanation from the one is what in the Greek they call the nous, N-O-U-S. Nous basically means mind or intellectual principle. It's translated as that in different texts. We'll just use the word mind. The mind contains all the true ideas of the good and of the one, and all true ideas of the forms, okay? So the mind contains what we call in unity divine ideas. According to this way of seeing reality, when a mathematician seeks mathematical truths, when scientists search for natural laws, when ethicists seek to understand virtues and moral laws, they are all seeking this realm of divine ideas. what Plotinus called nous, or mind. When we think about in the context of unity teachings, we talk about divine ideas, and included in that, of course, are what we call the 12 powers, which could also be called 12 virtues. They're 12 ideas, fundamental ideas of the nature of the good. Okay. So this is what the mystic is seeking, these divine ideas. We can also say that the idea of being human is a divine idea. There's a kind of ideal for what it means to be human, what it means to be virtuous, what it means to be healthy, right? To be whole, to be in harmony with things. So that's the realm of divine ideas, the first emanation, that which is closest to the one. So when we seek to understand our own real and true nature, when we seek to understand what it means to live a good life, we are searching for, in mystical terms, we are searching for this realm of the divine mind. So if you believe in divine ideas and truth, you may be a mystic. The next emanation of the one, think of this as sort of a flowing outwards, emanating from the realm of the divine ideas, according to Plotinus, is the realm of soul, what he calls soul. So in this system, divine ideas generate the capacity to perceive and express the divine ideas. In this sense, nature has a soul, for it expresses divine laws and divine energy. Humans and other living beings participate in the soul because they perceive nature, they perceive the divine ideas to some extent. Humans contemplate nature. Soul perceives ideas of good, but does not directly perceive the one good. So this is the realm, in effect, of thought, a mental perception, if you will, the realm of soul. So the mystic seeks to rise up in consciousness beyond the senses and thought to the perception of divine ideas. So soul is that realm, we might also say, of consciousness. And if you can believe that there is a reality beyond what can be seen with the eyes, you may be a mystic. You are in the realm of soul. Now, the final emanation in Plotinus's philosophy is what he calls matter. Matter is described as external forms. It is what we perceive through the five senses in the simplest sense. The material realm emanates from the soul's desire to externalize the divine ideas, to put them into a form that is, in fact, external to the soul or to the mind. So matter is, in the Plotinus theory, matter is the furthest limit of emanations from the one. So you can see there's this idea of dimensions flowing from other dimensions down into what he calls matter. And so the ethic in Plotinus, in simplest terms, is that once we reach the realm of matter, we've reached the furthest distance, if you will, of emanations from the divine one. Now, the pursuit of material things and goals in this theory is where all our troubles start. It's not that matter is evil or material forms are evil, but that the obsession with material things prevents us from turning back our attention to the divine one. This vision of life, if you will, is very similar to some of the things that Charles Fillmore wrote in his writings. We get caught up in materiality, and this is what causes our problems. But we can always turn our attention back to the right direction, back towards the divine ideas through contemplation. So if you are not attached to or obsessed with materiality, you may be a mystic. The mystic path is a return to the one in consciousness. It is a path of rising up in consciousness through the realms of sensation, through the realms of thoughts and feelings, to the perception of the divine ideas from which all these sensations, thoughts, and feelings emanate to, and then even beyond that realm of divine ideas, that realm of truth and reality, to the actual experience of the one, the good, which cannot be described. In the divine union of the mystical experience, all sense of self, of a separate self, all sense of space and time dissolves into an experience of pure consciousness, pure love, pure bliss. Mystics often speak of dissolving into the one. Now, you may have had such an experience and not really realized what it was. There may have been times in meditation, or a time in meditation, in deep meditation, where you lost track of time, where you even lost track of yourself, but nevertheless, we're still conscious. Conscious maybe only of a stillness and a peace and a silence, but still conscious. This is a mystical experience, or akin to it. Some are more intense, some last longer, but if you've ever had that sense of being conscious and yet not conscious of yourself, not conscious of space, not conscious of time passing, if you've had such an experience, you are a mystic. Plotinus described the nature of the one as the ultimate principle of all. So there's some direct quotations from his philosophy. This principle of all. And he says, what will such a principle essentially be? The potentiality of the universe. The potentiality whose non-existence would mean the non-existence of all the universe, and even of the intellectual principle, the mind, which is the primal life and all life. So he understood this one in terms of potentiality, the potentiality for everything. Without that potentiality, nothing could exist. And so then he says, thus we are always brought back to the one, to the absolute. Its nature is that nothing can be affirmed of it, not existence, not essence, not life. Since it is that which transcends all these. That again, typical of the mystic. It's beyond, this one is beyond any kinds of words we can use to express it. The good, again, which is the one. The good is the center of all else, and is by means of the good that everything has action, while the good is in need of nothing and therefore possesses nothing beyond itself. And so this is the goal of the mystic, to return to this pure good that needs nothing, that possesses nothing, that really is beyond our ideas of existence and even of life. And so, to summarize, if you believe that all comes from the divine one and divine good, then you may be a mystic. If you believe in divine ideas and truth, you may be a mystic. If you believe there's a reality beyond what can be seen with the eyes, you may be a mystic. If you are not attached to materiality, but a truth seeker, you may be a mystic. And if all these things are true for you, you are a mystic, and you are on a path that leads to merging with God. Next week, we'll explore more about the actual practices and experiences of mysticism. And I hope to see you then. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Thank you.
Pleasure.
We are attempting to have some time for question and answers, but since we are going to have a class with James in February, we will have opportunities to do that. We want to really, in this new year, being more in dialogue with you, have more questions coming from you to the speaker and then interacting. But since we're having this class in February, we can hold off with the questions right now, because I want to share with you something before we go into our French prayer service. We have what we started to have a unity international network once a month, a meeting on people from different aspects in the unity world, and there is no actual structure. It's just an exchange of ideas and information. And so we have the French work, of course, that is being activated because it's of interest to us in Quebec. And we had a meeting yesterday, and I know that several of the people here who are with us were there at the meeting, but we came up with this idea that we really would like to activate the interest among the unity people who are in the Francophone world. And we were thinking about all of you who are primarily Francophone. Would you consider maybe inviting somebody from your world, from your circle of friends, from your circle of family, to come on a Sunday? So this is just one of the ideas that was shared yesterday that came around the idea of, we had an extensive list of unity people in Quebec, in the province of Quebec. And of course, Sandra, our very own Sandra, was the executive secretary during those years, and she answered the phone and she wrote the letters and she prayed with people. And so we've had this foundation, we've had this deep connection, and bringing the unity work was very alive in Quebec, in people's thinking. So I'm bringing it up because it's very dear to my heart that we pursue this, nurture the ideas. There are all kind of ideas popping around what we can do about making Unity of Montreal bilingual again, but the ideas need to be nurtured so that they're grounded and so that they have adequate foundation in terms of how to organize it, what to do about it, how to pursue it. So I just want you to hold the thoughts and the ideas in prayer. With that, we're coming to the end of our hour here. We will then stay on for our prayer service in French. We have Anna-Marie who will read her very own La Pensée du Jour, that is now finding a very interesting development in that La Pensée du Jour is being translated into German already, and is filling a great need because the German Daily Word there's some issues about distribution, and so her La Pensée du Jour has already become very, very welcome and is being translated by her into German. And then we have Rosemary who will also share a prayer with us in French. So remember unity with your giving and sending in your donation, putting yourself actively into the flow of giving and receiving. So I welcome you to reach out across the screen. I welcome you to make this more and more real, that you can touch, that you can have this extra sense developed where you can tune in, even to feel the heartbeat of the other person that you're holding the hand. It also helps tremendously in your prayer work. If you have more and more a sense of letting your intuition develop this sense that you can go across time and space. And for a moment, we take Jennifer into our circle of holding hands. And the power of this circle as we are holding hands, this power is present right now in Jennifer's situation, in her body, in her spirit, in her mind, in her soul, in her experience. This power is active right now in the situation with Jennifer. And let's close with our prayer for protection. Will you join me? The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And I want to take a moment to acknowledge the ones that are connecting through our landlines and through each and every one of you who have somebody connected with our Sunday morning activity through the phone lines. Our love goes to you. We know you're with us, and we are grateful. And so it is. Amen. Take a moment to look at one or two people with smiling eyes. Break down the shyness and the inhibitions that you might feel on being on screen. Learn to be comfortable looking at each other. There is a smiling Lisa. Hello, Lisa. That's so wonderful. Yes, we need to communicate. It's words is one thing, but we got these other senses, you know? And to let the light shine through your eyes, smiling, smiling. Yes, 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 yes. Namaste. 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 Much love to all of you and to a wonderful Sunday. I know it's cold in Montreal. I just looked up what kind of numbers. I mean, 24 below freezing, right? You are hardy people, you Montrealers. All right. Can we have Anne-Marie, beautiful Anne-Marie from Switzerland, who is the writer and producer and publicist and publisher of La Pensée du Jour, and now is growing extra wings to do this also in German. Oh, such a call for service, Anne-Marie.
Thank you very much. And thank you also to everybody here for your support, because I feel that I'm supported for doing this work. La pensée du jour de ce mois-ci est aussi surtout sur la respiration. Parce que chaque respiration est une nouveauté. Une nouveauté pour expérimenter notre corps, nos environnements, tout. Vivre sans respirer, c'est comme passer l'aspirateur sans électricité. Rien ne se passe. Sans respiration, les relations ne peuvent être créées et sans électricité, la poussière ne peut être enlevée. Cela semble simple, n'est-ce pas? C'est simple aussi. Tu peux faire ta propre expérience. Est-ce que tu peux nettoyer avec un aspirateur sans électricité? De même, est-ce que tu peux sentir le parfum d'une rose sans souffler? Est-ce que tu peux vraiment observer quelque chose attentivement et tranquillement sans souffle? Est-ce que l'observation du souffle donne la possibilité de voir un problème difficile ou une personne d'une manière différente? C'est de même avec la respiration et la peau. As-tu déjà remarqué que lorsque tu as peur, la respiration est plus rapide? À l'inverse, lorsque tu as confiance, ta respiration est calme. Il est difficile de faire un bon travail lorsque la respiration est agitée. Nos mains ne sont pas assez stables. Il en va de même pour les pensées. Elles tourbillonnent dans notre cerveau de manière très confuse. La peur, elle est importante. Elle nous montre toujours quelque chose qui devrait être mieux pris en compte. Vu sous cet angle, il est également facile de retrouver son propre rythme respiratoire et de reconnaître ce qui se cache derrière cet avertissement. Prends ta peur par la main et continue ton chemin avec elle, renforcé par respiration.
Merci Anne-Marie, merci beaucoup, 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 beaucoup. Rosemary?
Could you please make me a co-host so I can share my screen?
Voilà.
Merci bien.
Je vous en prie.
Voilà. J'ai pensé aujourd'hui, étant donné que nous apprécions beaucoup les mots, les paroles, les enseignements de Thich Nhat Hanh, qui a quitté la Terre tout récemment. Et j'ai choisi 2 citations de lui. La première, la Sangha, c'est le mot bouddhiste pour la communauté spirituelle. Et ces paroles viennent d'une retraite francophone qui a eu lieu en 2014 avec Thich Nhat Hanh comme enseignant. Et avant de commencer le chant, il a appelé à tous ceux qui étaient présents. La Sangha est invitée à retourner à sa respiration. Ainsi, notre énergie collective de pleine conscience nous rassemblera en un organisme coulant comme une rivière, sans plus aucune séparation. Laissons la Sangha tout entière respirer comme un seul corps, chanter comme un seul corps, écouter comme un seul corps et transcender les frontières d'un soi illusoire et en nous libérant ainsi du complexe de supériorité, d'infériorité et d'égalité, le complexe de séparation. Et aussi dans la même idée, dans le même courant, il a dit vivre dans le moment présent est un miracle. Le miracle n'est pas de marcher sur l'eau. Le miracle est de marcher sur la terre verte dans le moment présent, d'apprécier la paix et la beauté qui sont disponibles maintenant. Nous sommes ici pour nous éveiller de l'illusion de notre séparation. Nous sommes ici pour nous éveiller de l'illusion de notre séparation.
Beautiful. Whew.
Et alors, je vous invite à être ensemble en unité avec moi en disant la prière du Notre Père. Notre Père qui est aux cieux, que ton nom soit sanctifié, que ton règne vienne, que ta volonté soit faite sur la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain de ce jour. Pardonne-nous nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons aussi à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous laisse pas entrer en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal, car c'est à toi qu'appartiennent dans tous les siècles le règne, la puissance et la gloire. Amen.
Amen.
Et quand on dit cela, sans aucune idée de séparation, dans une unité totale, c'est le mysticisme.
Merci, Rosemary.
Merci.
Merci, merci beaucoup. Merci à tout le monde.
Bonne
Mes
semaine à vous.
Merci.
collaborateurs,
Bonne
James
semaine.
and Rosemary.
Bon dimanche.
Bon dimanche, oui. Bonne soirée.
Bonne soirée. Oui, la nuit. Ciao, Anne-Marie. Ciao, ciao.
Ja, tschüss, sate.
Ja.
Au revoir.
Bye,
Au
James.
revoir. C'est très bien dit, James.
Rosemary, I need a moment with you, please, about some scheduling issues. Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
If it's possible. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye, everybody. Letitia. Hello, hello. Look at this beautiful family, huh? Yeah.
Yes.
I'm going to stop the recording.